In this video, I want to cover some of the basics of working with clips in Traction. Now, clips can hold audio or MIDI data, and we'll be using them a lot. You organize the clips on the timeline or on individual tracks. This is an example of a clip. If I click a clip, it will select it. If I click another one, it will select it. If you double click a clip, it auditions it, and then if you click outside, it will stop the audition. Like that. If you want to select more than one clip, then you hold down Command if you're on a Mac or Control on a PC and click the different clips that you want to select. So you can select a collection of clips like that. Now in the next video, we're going to talk more about editing with clips, but once you've got a multiple selection, you could do things like move them as a group like that. Now, if you have a selection like this and you want to clear it, you can use the escape key. Now, as I've mentioned before, we have an alternative mapping in this video series, and you load that under Settings, Keyboard Shortcuts, and under Reset to Defaults, use the alternative Traction key mappings. In the traditional Traction key mappings, escape is not the key that you use for that, but I think it's a really nice workflow if you do that. Now, if you want to make a multiple selection, you can also use the lasso tool. So you hold down Option if you're on a Mac or Alt on a PC and just drag. If you hit the Option, you'll see that you get this plus type cursor, and then you drag, and anything that this yellow box touches becomes selected, just like that. Within there, you could turn off some of these selected clips by holding Command or Control and then clicking, and then you can make a selection like that as well. Now escape to clear all those. Now if you want to make one long contiguous selection, this works like on a lot of programs. If you select the first clip and then go out here later on one track, hold down Shift and make a selection, you can do a big contiguous selection in that way. And once again, I'll just hit escape to clear that selection. So now that we've talked about selecting clips, let's talk about how Snap works in Traction. So I'm going to create a new track. Just right click here and do Create New Track. That gives me a new track above the other tracks. I'm going to select this clip and then move it up into this area right here. So if I just drag it, it will snap up here. I have snap turned on. If I wanted to copy it, then all I need to do is hold down Command as I drag it, and then that copies the clip. So we'll do that. That would be Control on a PC. Now down here in the transport, you can see that snapping is turned on. Also in the menu, the Snap menu allows you to enable or disable snap. It does exactly the same thing. And the keyboard shortcut for that is the letter Q. So Q turns it on or off. Q you can think of as quantize. Snapping is related to quantizing. So we'll turn snap on, and you'll see if I drag this clip from the header, that it will snap along in 1 bar increments. Let's just zoom in a little bit more so you can see that better. So now you can see all the bars. Bar 53, bar 54. The snap resolution is now half of a beat. So if I drag now, you can see that it actually snaps along at half beat increments. So I can snap to bar 54. I can also snap to a lot of incremental increments between there. And if you want to see exactly where you're snapped to, just look down here in the properties and you can see the starting position. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Now, one of the better ways to zoom out is to grab above the cursor and just push up. And then if you hover, you'll see that now the snap resolution is set to 1 beat. Now if I drag, I'm always going to snap into 1 beat increments like this. So if you look right down here at the starting position, you can see I'm on beat 2, beat 4 at that point. This makes it easy to align it to the beat or to an individual bar. And then if I zoom out more, now you can see I've gotten it where my resolution is 1 bar. So now as I move, I'm going to always be snapping to a full bar. This is great if you're just trying to arrange something. It works well for this kind of drum beat as well. I'm going to just solo this track. Now that snapping is to the start of an individual clip. If we go to a higher snap resolution, you'll see that snapping also applies to things like trimming. Now we'll be covering trimming and basic audio editing in the next video, but I just wanted to show you that the snapping is going to affect all of those trimming behaviors as well. The snapping may affect the cursor movement depending on another setting you have set. If you go to the snap menu, you'll see snap cursor movement. Then as you move the cursor will move in the increments based on the snap setting or based on the zoom level. So if I zoom out more to where we're at full beat level, then you can see as I drag the cursor around like this, that it's snapping to the nearest beat. You can tell that by looking down here in the time counter area on the transport. Now another snap behavior is snap clips to neighbors. So I want to go over here where I've got a couple of other clips set up. And I'm going to turn snap clips to neighbors off first of all, and then get these two clips close together. You'll see that they don't actually connect. They'll overlap and they'll snap to the grid increments. But if I turn snap to neighbors on, then it creates another essentially grid line right at that point. So then snap to neighbors, it will butt right up against that clip. And that's very useful for lots of kinds of editing where you want to get clips end to end. VoiceOver is a particular example of that. Now you can temporarily override snap by holding down the command key as you do a drag like this. So I'm dragging, you can see that it's moving along by the snap increment. But if I hold down command or control on a PC, command on a Mac, you can see that that gives me the ability to freely position or to freely override the snap behavior. Same thing if I'm trimming up the end and I'm not getting what I want. I can hold down command and then I can freely override that snap without actually turning the snap on and off. Another thing that we can do with the snap resolution is to do nudging. So we can see that the snap resolution is set to 1 beat. Nudging in this keyboard definition is done with shift and the arrow keys. So if I do shift right arrow, it will go over by 1 snap increment or back by 1 snap increment. Then if I tighten this up to where it's by 1 bar, and then do shift arrow. Now that's kind of useful for clips, but it's really useful for MIDI notes. And this is just a preview. We'll talk about MIDI notes later. If I double click on the header, I'll go into the large view, and then you can see the MIDI editor here. The MIDI notes work just like the clips in that they respect the current snap. So right now I can snap along by my current grid increment, which is bar. And I can do that with nudge as well. So if I hold shift and the right arrow, then I'm nudging that particular note. Now when we're working with MIDI, we can also apply groove, which is a much more sophisticated kind of snapping. And we'll get into that later on when we get into MIDI editing. But for now, that's an introduction to snapping. Remember the keyboard shortcut Q to turn snap on and off, or you can just turn it on or off right down here in the transport area. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.